Hi, and welcome back to part 2 of Rethinking Culture in the French Classroom. Today, we're exploring one simple question. What does it really mean to be Francophone? If I asked you to picture a Francophone person, you might imagine someone from France, perhaps even speaking with a Parisian accent. But in reality, French is spoken across the globe. It's an official language in nearly 30 countries and is used in diverse communities across Africa, the Caribbean, Europe, and here in Canada. In fact, the majority of French speakers today live outside of France, many in African countries like Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. But despite this, the versions of French that show up in textbooks, audio clips, and assessments are often still centered around France. So there's a disconnect between the reality of the Francophone world and what students actually see in the classroom. So why is it that classroom materials so often center France, and more specifically, a particular version of French associated with Paris? This connects to an idea called native speakerism. In simple terms, it's the belief that there is one ideal way to speak a language, usually based on so-called native speakers. This positions certain accents or dialects as more correct or more valuable than others. But language is never neutral. When we treat one way of speaking as the standard, we're also reinforcing social hierarchies, many of which are shaped by colonial histories. For example, French spread globally through colonization, but the versions of French associated with France often continue to be treated as more legitimate or more correct. So these hierarchies aren't accidental. They're historically produced, and they still show up in our classrooms today. This can have real effects in the classroom. Speakers of different varieties of French, or those who are learning it as an additional language, may feel that their way of speaking is somehow less legitimate. To better understand this, we can draw on Claire Crampia's idea of symbolic competence. This means recognizing that language doesn't just communicate meaning, it also reflects power, identity, and social values. In other words, how we speak and how others perceive our speech can shape how we are seen and understood. So how can we bring this awareness into our teaching? First, use diverse Francophone media. Include music, videos, and social media from a range of communities. But go beyond simply adding them in. Ask students to interpret what they see and hear. Whose voices are represented? What perspectives are being shared? Second, explore accents and perceptions. For example, you might play 2 audio clips, one from France and one from West Africa, and ask students, which one sounds more correct to you? Why? Where do those ideas come from? You might even take this further by asking students to reflect on their reactions more, such as by asking, which voice did you trust more? Why do you think this is? These kinds of reflections help students recognize that their assumptions about language aren't neutral. They've been shaped by what they've been exposed to. And third, investigate language and identity. Students can explore regional expressions or slang and consider what they reveal about culture, history, and belonging. This helps students see language as more than just a set of rules, but as something that is deeply connected to people's lives. And for students, this can be powerful. When they see multiple ways of speaking and being represented, they're more likely to feel that their own identities and ways of using language are valid. As a consequence, these learners are motivated to continue pursuing and investing in language learning opportunities throughout their lives. These approaches matter because our classrooms shape how students understand both language and identity. When we broaden what counts as French, we create spaces where more students see themselves reflected and valued. Thank you for joining me for part 2 of Rethinking Culture in the French Classroom. In our final video, we'll take a look at how to take these ideas and apply them more directly in practice. See you there.